Welcome back to Property Playbook. We're your hosts, Elena Saraditas
and Erica Reddy-Shaquette.
And today we have a fantastic guest with us, Chantel Crisp. I can't wait to introduce you and hear all things about your book of business and what you have done in terms of scaling the property ladder. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So do you want to maybe start with how many properties you have, how you've kind of scaled your business, and where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back a little while. So back in 2006, I graduated from university and decided to purchase my first property and made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of good lessons, but started out renovating. And now fast forward, I think it's about 11, 12 properties that I've bought and sold. And now in the last year, we were holding 7, and then we sold 3 to amalgamate it. So we've got 4 properties. And over the last 10 years, we've renovated 10 properties, and we're on our 11th now. Because that kind of ties into the strategy we usually focus on, which is buying, fixing, and holding for 3 to 5 years.
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, let's just start with, that is tremendous. I mean, the number of properties in such a short span of time and to climb the ladder the way that you have, I think is incredible. I mean, I know you're obsessed with this topic. So I will let you start teeing up the questions.
We started a little early, and I kind of found out how many she owned, and my jaw was on the ground.
I was like, oh, no, stop, we're not recording.
But you're doing pretty well for yourself, too. Like, I'm surprised we haven't gotten into that yet, so...
We're gonna have a couple lunches. I told her I need her accountant's number. We need to like flip flop on renovators and contractors after this. Like, we have a whole different podcast episode for that. But I think I want to start with, when you bought your first property, how did you get to your second and third? Like, kind of give us that story.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the toughest thing, is trying to figure out how to scale. I had a good down payment. I had saved a lot through university. I had run a business through university throughout the summers. I had accumulated some good income, so I was able to have a good down payment. Not much, though. I don't think it was very large, but it was good enough at that time to be able to purchase a little townhouse. And being my first property, I went with new construction with an unfinished basement. And my parents were very supportive of me buying real estate. I mean, I was, 21 and had this money sitting in my bank account, and they're like, you need to go and do something good with this. Otherwise, you're going to spend it. You're your early 20s and you're just going to buy things. So they kind of guided me to kind of pick a new construction development, find something that I could put a side entrance in legally through the builder. It would have it at a finished basement, but then I would finish the basement. So that's what I did. And everybody that in my life at the time thought my parents bought the house for me or something.
Right.
But no, like, I did it wholly on my own. And so I found a contractor. I found out how to source a lot of this stuff. Luckily, I had some experience painting. I ran a painting business throughout university. And so I knew some trades and had a lot of familiarity with how houses could work. But it was still like a massive learning curve for me, especially at that age. But I was able to finish the basement, rented it out. And then after about 3 years, we kind of did it again. So I met my husband, is now, at the time, he was, my new boyfriend.
He's probably like, who is this girl amalgamating real estate?
What is that house? So then it was helpful to start pooling our income together to be able to qualify for more. But when we bought our first house together, he didn't have that kind of income. And so he kind of had to start accumulating his income to sort of get to that level as well. But we were able to get, like, that first house gave me some good equity.
Yeah.
So I took that equity and bought another house. And that was actually a great lesson. I should have probably kept it, because now I had 2 units. They were not legal, which is a whole other conversation. But if you can refinance the property and take some of that equity and use that now as down payment on a new property, and be able to have enough rent coming in from 2 units to be able to, still be able to afford the mortgage and the costs, and hopefully cash flow, but at least break even, then that's something you can look at. But I was still very new and didn't really have a path, and just said, oh, I'll just sell it. So there's a lot of costs associated with that.
At any point then, were you licensed yet? Or when did...
No, I didn't get licensed until 2013. So this was 2006, 2007. And then it wasn't until 2013 where I realized, like, I'm obsessed with real estate at this point. At that point, I had already purchased a few properties. Now we were renting them out. We were learning more about how things work as a landlord. Every single property that we purchased together, we were renovating. We started out doing all the renos ourselves, everything. Like, we were doing painting, yes, but also flooring and tile. And at one property, we scraped all the stucco on off the ceiling and then took on the endeavor of re-mudding it and sanding it down.
I mean, if this wasn't a test leading into marriage, like, properties in every possible thing you could do, you've done. You're like, we've done it all for cereal.
Yeah, let's get married now. And after that, we got married. And we're still married. But we are a good duo in the sense that I'm very much the visionary. Like, I'll see the property and be like, okay, here we go. Like, this is the one. And then he's very good at getting everything executed. So I'll kind of design and he'll execute. He's very good at managing the trades. And once we got to a point in our careers and started to have kids, we didn't have the bandwidth to be able to do the renovations ourselves. So one of the biggest projects we did was back in 2015. We did a massive, like, tear down extension in Toronto, the home that we lived in for the last 8 years. And we did hire a contractor for that. And we learned a lot about doing, like, a full year build, which was a very cool experience, but grueling at the same time. And after that, we realized, okay, if we can start making some of these contacts with these trades, maybe we don't have to hire a contractor for large projects like this. So we started to now sub out trades ourselves. So now, fast forward, we're in the middle of a reno right now, and we know the contacts. We can kind of GC it ourselves. I know where to source everything at that point. So it's become a lot easier, but it's its own learning curve. Like,
for sure.
Learn about design and construction and the nitty-gritties of the coordination of it all.
And how terrified were you when you bought your first property? Because I think sometimes the biggest challenge, at least in my opinion, is that fear factor of kind of being like, I'm going to step into this, and there's 100 people that will be like, don't do it. Oh my gosh, no, this is not the right decision. So, like, talk maybe through some of those emotions as you actually walked through it the first time, maybe the second time, that fear factor piece.
I probably didn't have enough fear.
Okay.
Like, it was pretty fearless at that age. Like, yeah, like, let's do that. Let's just buy a house and just jump into it 2 feet first. Like, I am the type of person who enjoys jumping into a challenge and then problem solving my way out of it.
Okay, even better. So don't be fearful. There's the message.
But there are more things to consider than that. Like, now it's much more specific. So if we're going to invest somewhere, we're looking at, well, what are the most important factors for appreciation? So we're thinking about, how close is it to rapid transit? Is there new rapid transit coming along? Because that'll impact some growth significantly once that rapid transit is complete, like the Eglinton LRT, for example.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of immigration coming into the area? Are there job opportunities close by? Is it walkable? So we have like a chart that will kind of assess to see if it's going to make sense. Yeah, short-term, long-term, and a full spreadsheet in understanding the return on our investment. So we're a lot more specific and thoughtful than just like, yeah, I'll just jump into this one for sure.
I think it has to do with age, though, too, because I started around the same time you did. And the first one I bought, I didn't have that. Like, everyone around me had the fear.
Right.
But I was like, if I don't do this, like, I'll never make any money. So I have to get into the game.
Right. And I think, and you could be right. I mean, I think there's probably an innocence to investing. And then we probably get to the other side of the spectrum, more of what I was saying, in the sense of you get so fearful, you hear so many horror stories that you're like, I'm just not going to do it. There's got to be other ways to make money. So,
yeah. And I think, too, for me, I always enjoyed the fact that it was an asset that I owned.
Of course.
And there are risks involved. Like, you could end up with a really, really crappy tenant who just doesn't want to pay.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we renovate all of our properties is we're trying to attract a good tenant profile that is really happy with where they live. And we look at it like a business, or we're providing them a product that is beautiful and that they're proud to live there and they're going to pay. Whereas if you provide them a really crappy place to live, like,
of course. Yeah.
I mean,
You kind of give what you get.
Yeah.
Or get what you give.
Yeah. Something like that.
One of those.
So, yeah, I mean, it also helped that my parents were supportive when I was young. But I know working with clients, like being a real estate broker, there's a lot of fear that comes from the parents if somebody is trying to buy something on their own. Because depending on what generation they lived in, and if they went through the recessions in like 91, 92, they saw massive declines in their real estate, and they don't always have the mindset of like, use your equity. Sometimes they have the mindset of pay your mortgage down as quick as possible.
Yep.
But if you actually do calculate the numbers, if you have 2 appreciating assets, you're going to be way further ahead than if you just have one that you're trying to pay down really rapidly.
I think that's such a great point. And on that piece, because I know you had one property in specifically that you really did use kind of almost as a leverage tool.
Yes.
Maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that really is what led you to the ability to have multiple properties that could appreciate.
Yes. So one property that we recently sold, which was strategic, we bought it at a really good time before the market increased, and we did a full renovation to it top to bottom, rented it out top to bottom, so 2 units, and it essentially became our little like equity holder.
Yeah.
Because it appreciated really nicely. It had great rents, and so every time we wanted to leverage a property to buy the next one and take out some equity, that always seemed to be the one that made the most sense. And it had all those great factors, like it was walkable to shops and amenities, it was walkable to the subway, lots of jobs close by. Like all of the points were checked there. So we used that property for a good 6 or 7 years. It was very generous for us to leverage to purchase other properties. Because once you have rental income coming in, the bank will look at that income. They will usually take 50% of it and add it to your total income. And if you've got a good amount of equity there, you go. And we also learned over the years too that picking a variable mortgage, if you're going to be refinancing often, will avoid a lot of penalties. But look at the mortgage environment that we're in right now.
Ask, were you on variable for everything?
We're on variable for everything. So everything doubled. I think one of them even tripled in its mortgage payments. Wow. Yes. Luckily, we were at a timing where we were ready to offload some of these properties, but that particular property that we really pulled out a lot of equity, if we were in different times and were over leveraging ourselves too much, that would have been dangerous.
Yes.
You really do have to be careful of how far you're going on things like that. But we kind of got to a point where everything was in our personal names, and we realized that we want to start switching everything over to a corporation. So we offloaded some of the properties that would have made sense for us to now use for a primary residence, upgrade our primary residence, keep our cost of living very small, and then now start buying out of a corporation.
My gosh, so much good information. I'm going to let you, I know that because I know you're itching. You got the question.
Oh my God, no. I just think that me and her are going to be best friends.
Well, that's your...
No, because I just think it's me for the future.
Yes.
No, it's literally, that's what it is. So, okay, the only difference I see in the way that you've done this is the first property you sold off, the first property I kept and leveraged.
Yes.
That's like the biggest thing, but I'm variable on everything too. Yeah.
But it also sounds like if you could go back in time, you would have kept that first property. That's probably, I don't want to say moral of the story or hindsight is always something.
Yeah. But I think keeping it for at least 3 to 5 years is going to give you a good amount of appreciation and equity.
But that's the reason why I asked, were you an agent at the time or were you not? Because
no, I knew nothing.
In my mind, like now, because I've gone through it, the first thing I ask a client that's looking to upsize or looking to buy another property is, can you hold on to this one before you decide to sell?
Yeah.
And it's because of my experience that I do that. I'm like, if you could leverage this property and buy another and you still upsized and like you bought another property to increase your portfolio, can you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is yes, then hold on.
Definitely. And I think the big message is leverage is key here. Leverage and really looking at the numbers and understanding what the big picture looks like is that important piece to climb the ladder, but still do it with some conservative, understanding so that if, yes, mortgage rates double or in your case triple, you're still able to keep your portfolio and you're not, eating minute rice.
Yeah. But the other thing too is when you're looking at multiplex homes, even if one is vacant, the rest are carrying the mortgage. So it makes it a little lighter for you.
Yeah.
Like you have multiple investments, but if there are 2 to 3 units in each, even with the interest rates going up, like at least you have coverage. If one tenant leaves and you're on variable and you have a single family home, you're in a more difficult situation.
Yes.
And the way I've always phrased it with myself and with my clients is the first property you use your own money for. The second, third, and fourth is recycling the same money you put.
Which is 100% obviously what what you love, but clearly what Chantel's been able to actually do, execute, and repeat multiple times.
Yeah. And, it got to a point where we were putting all of our money into real estate, or like any additional income that we had was going into real estate. Eventually we did have to diverse a little bit. So, we kind of got on that. But yeah, like we are mostly in real estate. So any income that we're generating, we try to put it into another property. So I think too, like I find most real estate investors, once you start purchasing a lot of properties in your personal names and you want to kind of take it to the next level and you want to start incorporating, if you have a business already, you can open up a holding company and start purchasing properties out of holding company. That's a lot of tax savings that you can use directly from your business into the holding company and be purchasing properties with before tax dollars. Speak to your accountant about that because the stuff that has to come back around later. But there's a lot of different ways to set it up. And also, once you get to a certain level with those properties too, if you do decide to sell and pay down your primary residence, then you can maintain a really small cost of living and put everything towards your investments if you want to. So that's sort of the strategy that we evolved to with the help of our accountant.
Which I think is amazing. And obviously, yes, accountant, you're right. Talk to an accountant, get advice. This isn't, gospel here. But I think the other piece that I wanted to kind of touch on, because I know you've talked about kind of recycling everything. Do you have that rainy day fund? Do you have a slush fund? Like what if, oh my gosh, the roof goes on one property and the basement leaks on another, and all of a sudden you have all this maintenance you weren't expecting? How do you kind of handle being a landlord and managing the properties?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty lucky in the sense that I screen the tenants quite well. I want to make sure they've got a really good repayment history, good references, good credit score, and we do provide them with a really nice products. We've actually been very lucky over the years.
Amazing.
We haven't had issues like that, knock on wood. But I will say when it's time to sell the property is where you really see the fangs come out on some tenants. It's just that they're terrified that they're going to have to leave. And they do have a lot of rights, and, we have to respect those rights as well. So it can get a little bit complicated. But I think, sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Just on kind of maintenance and costs and how you oversee. So obviously
so part of my initial spreadsheet is that I allocate a percentage, and it's usually 4 or 5%.
Amazing.
Of like a stay fund to be able to accommodate any expenses that come up.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think I always say 4 to 5. You always want that rainy day, that slush fund. I feel like, with clients all the time, they'll be like, I want to buy a home instead of a condo because there's no maintenance fees associated with a house. And I'm like, sorry, let's just reverse that. Things cost a lot of money when you own a home. And so being prepared, I think that 4 to 5% is a really great gauge for people to work with.
Yeah. But there's also like emergency fund ways to get things done. Like, for example, like if you have a HELOC, you have a flex line. If you have an ability to pull equity out that you've already paid in, then you can actually do any remodeling or renovations that you need to do that come up. And like the tenants too, the tenants help. Like it overall, like the cost of living is brought down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that way you do have extra cash that if it happens, you can fix stuff.
Totally. But you know me, as conservative over here, I like to have all my ducks in a row, everything's set.
So this tolerance as you go down the table goes up. Like the lowest risk to the highest risk.
Well, I mean, listen, I got to keep everyone protected that sits over here in my camp, okay?
But this is a real thing. So what I learned over the years, because I used to be a part of a lot of investment groups and I'd go to meetups and I wanted to learn as much as I could about how to invest properly in real estate. So I really tried to educate myself to make sure we were doing things with intention and not just like willy-nilly buying properties and then selling them with, nothing in mind. So the term is the PETA factor. So the pain in the...
Yes.
Ours is a PETA factor. How high of a PETA factor do you have? Like, if you're going to purchase a condo and you're going to have one tenant and you're going to pay maintenance fees and you're going to have the property management company that's on site managing the bigger things that might come up, and you're just responsible for the maintenance as a landlord for the interior of the unit, so appliances, plumbing,
pretty minimal.
Low PETA factor. But what comes with the low PETA factor is lower rents as well. So it's very difficult to cash flow on a condo in Toronto, for example, of course.
Unless you're putting down 35 to 45% down payment.
Yes. So as you start moving into multiple units, so 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the Peter factor, the PETA factor raises, the cash flow raises. So it's all kind of relative. So you just have to know what your risk factor is. And that's the number one thing I will talk to you about with my clients is like, okay, we're going to do this. What's your PETA factor?
Yeah. No, and I think that's such a great point. And I really think, I mean, we've talked about so many incredible things, I think, in this to give people a stepping off place, where to begin, how to do it, how to start. But I think the PETA factor, truthfully, is my biggest, clearly, my biggest takeaway over here, because it's so true.
Yeah, but it has to do with your lifestyle too. If you're deciding to be a property step ladder where you buy the first property and get to your end goal home, or if you want to be a multi-level investor where you own multiple properties.
Absolutely.
Like there is a risk factor associated with both. One is a little bit more conservative, but it is a lot less reward, I would say. And the other one, you know, we might get heart attacks every once in a while, but it's going to be fine.
Yes. Yes. But, you know, back to that, if you want to jump off that first property, you want to show some rents as quickly as possible. You know, that rent will increase your income and your approval. And because the mortgage company, like the mortgage agent in the bank, they'll account for that. And that'll allow you to qualify for more. And so as long as you're not over method. Yeah. The Burr method. Let's talk about the Burr method.
Russian ladies in your back then. Speaking of Burr, okay, I'm trying to keep
right. This is essentially what I do.
Renovate, rent, refinance, same.
Repeat.
Yes. Another R, repeat.
Yes. Burr. Because this is, yeah, we do this on a long-term basis. Like some people do it within a year. We do it over 3 to 5 years. So you buy the property, you renovate it, you rent it out to high-profile tenant who's willing to pay for this beautiful place you just renovated, get higher rents, refinance it, and then repeat, do it again.
I also love, for me, and I'm such a believer in this, I love that you're saying 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years. I think the big piece in this too is the time horizon. I think too many people jump into the market with a very, very short time horizon. And they're thinking, okay, I'm in a year and I'm out and I'm going to have this crazy return. And listen, if you somehow time the market perfectly, that can happen. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think time horizon, we need, I don't know, can we call it BERT? We need to add that in. Burn. Well, I'm adding the T for time horizon.
I don't even know where to go from there. I'm like lost fully. Okay, you have investment properties. We talked about it a little earlier. Some of them are rentals, some of them are Airbnb. What percentage is Airbnb? What percentage is rental? And how are you getting around city bylaws?
Let's go. Okay, so that was a fun little
spicy one.
Yeah.
So up.
We spent the first few years focusing on just BRRRRs and renting it long term. And when the pandemic came, we went off course a little bit. We found this amazing property in the country that had 3 legal houses on it, like unheard of. I mean, now that they're changing some of these bylaws, it will start coming. But at the time, unheard of. So we couldn't resist. And so we jumped on this property that did not have all the levels of appreciation we were looking for. It was very much off our path, but we were mesmerized by it and decided we were going to use one as a cottage for ourselves and rent out the other 2 through Airbnb. So this was our first endeavor with Airbnb, which was a huge learning curve. I really had to kind of learn it from the bottom up and make some mistakes along the way, trying to figure out how to set it up, making sure that we were allowed to do it in the township, being able to host people rurally in even in the winter. It was challenging, and it was a lot of maintenance. So not only coordinating the cleaners, but also coordinating the tenants and the questions. And it was like a whole second business, just coordinating the Airbnb. So after the pandemic kind of ended and things went back to normal, we had renovated these 3 houses. We were using one and renting out the other 2. And we realized we were just not using the property, like the main farmhouse, the way we wanted to anymore. We weren't even able to get up there because life was so busy with the kids' activities and different things going on. And the market had done really, really well. So we actually ended up selling the property. And what I learned is that Airbnb can be incredibly profitable, but the PETA factor
It's
is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It really is a whole business of its own.
I really, really love Airbnb. I'm going to say it because we have one, because in Toronto, we can only have one as an Airbnb. Yeah. And like, I don't want to get crucified. The government's going to come after me after this. But the Airbnb generates more than the full house. And like, we have multiplexes. That's most of our portfolio. So like one section of the multiplex is used as an Airbnb. That Airbnb's income could pay the mortgage month over month, just the Airbnb. But we pay an extra, I think, $50 a month for a special program that like does a lot of the managing for us, and everything's somewhat hands off. Like if we need to order things, the cleaner tells us what we need to order. We deliver it because Uber is fantastic, or Instacart. We deliver it to the door. The cleaners grab it. They set it up. They do the laundry, and everything's taken care of. But like, I wouldn't put rose-colored glasses on it. Mm-hmm. Dan manages the Airbnb. I manage everything else. That's how we've like split it up. So he has the Airbnb responsibility, and I think that's why I like it so much, because I don't have to.
You love it on Dan. Yeah, it's great on Dan.
And it's also, I think, she was in the city. Like Chantel in this case was managing something that wasn't even in the city. So that's a whole other ball game.
Well, like if something happens, who do you send? Like that's the biggest factor. Like if you have rural properties, like do you know someone in the town that will run over and be like, here's how you fix the water, or here's how you fix this? Like it's a whole different world. Or like the septic tank, all of a sudden something happened, because I'm assuming it was on septic.
Yep, is on septic. Actually, we were very lucky that we didn't have a septic issue, but at one point there was a set of tenants from the Airbnb that came in. It was a group of women in their 40s who did like a girls' weekend, and they set up themselves a whole wet and wilds, or what's the thing called where you slip and slide, and they ran the hose all day on the well and ran the well dry. We're like, is this even a thing? So there's like weird things like 1-800 I need water in my well now. Yeah, so we had to somehow get over there, get the well refilled pretty quickly. It actually worked out fine. But the tenants in the other house were like, we have no water. And they're doing a wet and wild thing going, I don't know. But they had fun. There was a lot of wine involved, I believe.
Yeah, no. I think the craziest thing I've had to deal with is oil tanks. I had an oil tank issue because I own one of our places in Halifax. And
I was just saying, I don't even think there are oil tanks anymore in the city of Toronto. But
okay,
early though, if they haven't converted to propane.
True. No, you're right.
So there was an oil tank, and apparently you need to figure out like a metering system where they measure it and fill it. If you have a company on standby, they'll like measure it and come and refill it randomly. I didn't know. So we buy the house, we close on the property, all is good in the world. One day the tenants message us and they're like, we have no heat. In the middle of winter, and it was Christmas.
Oh no.
I'm like, who do I call? Like, who's the emergency oil company in Halifax? So like renting out, it comes with this challenge, but like I do think the benefits outweigh it. Yeah. And I think through real estate, you've been able to gain financial freedom. Like so have I, and so is Erica. Yeah. Like we're the definitions of like climb the property ladder, and eventually you'll reap the benefits of it.
Yes, because it's not just about appreciation. Like some people, they think about buying a property and they're like, okay, well, sure, it'll go up, say, on average 6% a year, historically, 5 or 6 to be conservative. Okay, but you also have to look at cash flow, because you're going to get a return there. You're getting a return on the tenants paying down the mortgage through their rent, so you're getting mortgage pay down. And if you do a renovation, you're also getting forced equity into the property. So there's essentially 4 areas where you could make a return on. And if you're doing all of that, typically, like on my spreadsheet anyway, it's a return on your investment of anywhere from 20 to 25% on average is what I see if it's a good one.
Which is
huge. Yes, I can't get that in most stocks. Like, I'm not that savvy if anything else except for real estate, to be honest. But I'll ask people and say, okay, you love stocks. What kind of return do you typically get, or what kind of returns are you getting on these GICs at the bank that you're investing in? And I've never heard of anybody getting those kind of returns. Yeah. But you have to be able to wait those 3 to 5 years, because real estate does not go up in a straight line. It goes up and down and up and down and up overall. So if you don't wait that 3 to 5 years, you could be in one of the lulls that inevitably will come. and it may not be the best time for you to exit from that property. So you got to be prepared to hold.
No, and I think you're so right, because you never want to be a forced seller. So I think, listening obviously to you, I know the same with you, Elena, it's really building that business mindset around the portfolio and allowing that portfolio to be truly what it is, a wealth generation tool, but it's not, you're not at dire straits with it at the, oh my gosh, what if you've got, a really sound plan and a really concrete investment. So, I mean, this has been incredible, Chantel, your perspective and your advice and everything you have to offer and share with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, it's Elena Saradides
And Erica Reddy-Chiquette
on Property Playbook. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow.